Welcome to the Navigating Dental Insurance Podcast, where we don't take from insurance companies. Here are your hosts, Mr. Jordan Comstock and Mr. Ben Tuine. This podcast is sponsored by BoomCloud Dental Membership Software, www.boomcloudapps.com, and Veritas Dental Resources, www.veritasdentalresources.com. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to another episode of the Navigating Dental Insurance Podcast. I am your co-host, Jordan Comstock, and today we don't have Ben Tuine with us. He is out. It is a Saturday, and he's out playing with his family, and well, we're working here. Today I have an awesome guest. His name is Dr. Philip Eskew. He's not a dentist, he's actually an attorney and a medical doctor, a DOJD. And he is going to be coming on the show today to talk about a law called direct primary care in regards to in-house dental membership programs. I'm really excited about this episode because there's all sorts of questions in the industry about starting a membership program, in the practice as an alternative to dental insurance. And Dr. Eskew's research is very beneficial and valuable for our industry and the medical industry as well. But just to give you a background of Dr. Eskew, he is a family physician and attorney. He founded DPC Frontier, which is a website that educates the industry on DPC laws, or direct primary care laws. He founded that in February 2015. While completing his family medicine residency at the heart of Lancaster Regional Medical Center, and was named the American Osteopathic Foundation's 2015 Family Medicine Resident of the Year. I am excited to have him on the show today to talk about direct primary care law and how it can benefit everyone that is doing an in-house membership program for their dental practice. Dr. Eskew, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well, Jordan. Thanks for having me.
Oh, no, thanks for coming on the show, man. I'm excited to share your knowledge here. Is there anything I missed about in your bio? Could you introduce yourself to our audience and kind of give them a little bit background of what you're doing here?
Okay. I'm a family physician and attorney. I knew going into law school that I wanted to do med school, and by the time I was starting med school, I knew I wanted to do family medicine and direct primary care kind of from day one. So I've been researching all the legal and policy issues surrounding it since 2008, which was my first year of medical school. So 10 years later, the movement has grown quite a bit. There are laws in 23 states describing what direct primary care is and defining it as outside of insurance, which is helpful for everybody.
Absolutely, yeah. So let's dive right in. I think we've got some awesome content here today. Could you explain to our audience what is DPC, or direct primary care? A definition there. Yeah.
So direct primary care felt the need to be defined because in some states, insurance commissioners would see what we were doing and they would get nervous. So what the heck is it?
Yeah.
This was started when a bunch of physicians said, hey, what we're doing in primary care is not that expensive. In fact, it's rather affordable, and it gets much more affordable if we ditch insurance entirely. And if we're going to ditch insurance while we're at it, and ditch coding and ditch these itemized sort of ways of charging, because those things represent a barrier to care when it comes to chronic conditions. Totally. So if we're seeing a diabetic and we want to follow up with them every 3-4 months, we don't want to have this battle about us wanting them to come in or to renew a certain medication because they're fearful of increasing price associated with that visit. And so in traditional medicine, you always have patients sort of trying to get medications renewed in perpetuity without having the needed follow-up and the needed laboratory studies done. So in DPC, what we did was we said, hey, why don't we just charge you a monthly fee? The median across the country is right around $70. Most practices, it varies from 40 to 100 or so, depending on the patient's age. And they pay that monthly fee, and that's it. If they come in twice that month, fine. If they only had to come in once that quarter, fine. We email them, we text them, and there's lots of other communication platforms that we use in various secure manners to discuss their care. So it becomes a nice ongoing communication, and you get to treat them like family. The legal definition of DPC is that you're charging a periodic fee that's usually monthly, and that you're not billing any third parties on a fee-for-service basis. Mm-hmm. And if you are a practice that charges a per-visit fee, which is the minority of practices, that per-visit fee needs to be less than the monthly fee. So plain English, that's what makes sure you're not a cash pay urgent care. There's nothing wrong with that, but that model doesn't really encourage the same kind of ongoing communication we want to incentivize, and it also doesn't get unwanted attention from the state insurance commissioner. Totally. Because they view this relationship and they say, well, what if you only charge $20 a month and you said you're going to take on 20,000 patients? That's obviously an unsustainable model. And they have this fear that there's this undisclosed and unconsidered risk transfer, and that you would be in violation of these agreements with patients. So what we do is we say, look, if you describe your scope, you tell people what you're doing kind of up front, and you pick a patient cap, and you do these certain things that reduce your risk, then we'll define you as direct primary care, and then you don't have to worry about an insurance commissioner wanting to audit your practice and investigate everything you're doing.
Yeah. And so you say there's laws in 23 states?
Correct.
That allow that they're pretty positive laws in if of a practice, whether they're medical or dental, is doing a model like this. Mm-hmm. What do you see, I guess, across the nation? Are states opening up more and more to this as we go along?
Oh, sure. Yeah, there seems to be a trend in this direction. Once people understand what direct primary care is, you generally have bipartisan support. Yeah. If we go back even just to 10 years, we only had a couple states with any thought of any laws on the books. It was Washington and West Virginia back then. But you don't need a state law on the books to do this. Okay. It just makes it easier because it lowers legal barriers to entry. There's less uncertainty. There's less need to sort of invent yourself by carefully reviewing the insurance code and that kind of thing. So there are 48 states across the country. Everybody except the Dakotas has at least one DPC practice. 770 across the country that are doing this.
So cool. Wow, I had no idea. So in your opinion, what I am seeing in the dental industry, on the dental side of things, are membership programs are pretty popular, where the patients pay monthly or even sometimes a yearly fee. Does DPC define that? Can it be a yearly fee, or does it have to be monthly?
It can. The trend has been toward monthly. So some of the early DPC practices, part of the reason they got some unwanted attention from the insurance commissioner is because they said, you got to pay a yearly fee and you have to pay all of it up front. And then they also, at least in many ways, tried to make it almost non-refundable.
Okay.
And when you do that, you can sort of understand why the insurance commissioner is fearful that you're going to take on too many patients and not be able to do what you promised.
Absolutely, yeah.
And if you do that early on and then you close halfway through the year, are you even going to have the financial ability to refund money you should owe? So one of the things insurance commissioners like, and quite frankly that I think is just good business, is to make it a monthly fee, and not only that, but to take it in arrears, meaning at the end of the month. And then if something goes south and the patient wants out, then they do that, and instead of having to try and collect instead of having to try and track an escrow account and refund money and deal with complaints, a shortened final bill, assuming you even want to bother with it.
Yeah. Okay. So you recommend the monthly for if to follow DPC guidelines, I guess. Is that correct?
Yeah. That's the easier way to go about it. There are some variances in the state laws. I'm not aware. There might be one or two that do require an escrow if you take all that money up front, and there are a few that explicitly say you can't take more than a year up front.
Okay.
But I don't know anybody that was anyway.
I don't know why anybody would want to pay for 2 years of future medical or dental bills. So I mean a year I think is okay, but monthly is definitely easier to manage and less risky for the patient as well. You know, it lowers barrier of entry as well if a patient wants to sign up for these types of programs. So my next question.
There is this
go
fear.
ahead. Go ahead. Sorry.
Some reasons physicians would do that up front is they felt like, and I'm sure it's the same thing in dentistry, that first visit or two you do with the patient is usually much more thought and labor intensive than the follow-up appointments, because they're a new patient to you and they have a lot of conditions that have likely been unchecked. So if you're fearful that a patient would join for a month or two and then leave, and you would have put in all this work and that kind of thing, then the way to sort of discourage that is to use an enrollment fee.
Yes.
Clearly non-refundable.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, so we help with the software in the industry to help manage this, and we do have an enrollment fee area where a practice can set that up. And I do agree with you. If a practice, and most practices that come to us on the dental side that are thinking about doing a monthly membership fee, that's the objection or the concern that they bring up is, oh, what if I do a bunch of work and the patient just leaves a month or two after? So that one-time setup fee definitely can help, I guess, get rid of that fear or concern there.
Right.
So, in your opinion, why is DPC a positive law in regards to dental and even medical practices wanting to create a membership model, program in the practice?
Mm-hmm. So if you don't have these laws on the books, then you have to go to the insurance code and make sure you're not doing something that would run afoul of insurance law. Okay. In many states, you also have to look at the Health Maintenance Organization, the HMO definitions, because it states what we do, especially if you do it on a prepaid basis, starts to look like what's called a limited service HMO. So doing that homework is easy for me because I've done it all over the place and I've written articles about it. But for most physicians, this is a foreign language for sure.
Absolutely.
Even finding an attorney that's able to do it can be difficult because most of the time people go to a healthcare attorney, and healthcare attorneys are used to answering questions about Medicare, Medicaid, and third-party payment. They're not used to this kind of investigation. Yeah. So it can be expensive and confusing, and that's a problem. So that's part of the reason we push for this legislation, is just to take the confusion out of the air and make it easier to do these things. In most states, I haven't seen dentists be quite as vocal about it.
Yeah.
But in Alabama, which is one of the 23 states that already have laws on the books, dentistry was specifically listed in the law as well.
Oh, cool.
In a lot of states, they leave it a little bit vaguer, and they say any primary care provider. Sometimes they say physician, sometimes they say provider, and then the definition of primary care is very broad. And I would say that in some cases, dentistry could probably use the laws on the books and sort of argue that they would fit within those molds.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. They're very similar business models. Obviously, they're, each doctor of a medical practice and a dentist, they perform different tasks. But in my opinion, the business models are fairly similar. You're treating patients and trying to take care of the patients. So, thank you. I think that's a really, I think DPC law is very positive in regards to, setting up these in-house membership programs. I think in dentistry, from my perspective and what I've seen over the past few years, I think there's been a lot of myths in the dental industry about creating these types of programs, and I think DPC definitely helps clear that up in the industry. And helps medical and dental practices get a little bit clear on this awesome business model for both patient and practice. Mm-hmm. So in my research on your site and others, I've come across the term called a medical retainer agreement or a direct primary care agreement. How does this benefit a practice?
So actually having that agreement up front is helpful for everybody because it avoids confusion between both the, in your case, dentist and the patient, so that they know what in the world they're actually getting for this monthly fee. Retainer medical agreements, that's an older term that sort of includes arguably includes both direct primary care and concierge agreements.
Okay, I see.
Concierge did not need to be legally defined because the insurance commissioners weren't coming after those groups. What they did was charged a monthly quote for services, and then they went ahead and still billed insurance the way they always had.
Oh, I see.
And insurance companies like it, but they were playing a contractual game with them where the monthly fee was technically for something like a newsletter or a monthly wellness exam or something else that wasn't really covered by insurance. I'm not aware of that happening in the dental space, although it could be.
Yeah, I'm not aware either.
The most common medical group doing that, I mean, there are several of them. There's some chains out there that do it. Several started in Washington State, and there's another group kind of based out of Florida that does it a lot. But I think that's probably not growing quite as much as DPC is for obvious reasons. It just doesn't help the patient a lot more, I would argue, because it doesn't really cut out the overhead, and
Yeah.
you're still dealing with all the third-party billing.
You're still dealing with insurance, and it's still a headache. In fact, I know of a few practices that actually are doing that, but I wouldn't recommend it. It's still, you're still dealing with the headache and the patient. It's not as good as
Right.
for the patient as DPC or just a membership type program, right? So
Right.
very interesting. So
I would the most important, back to your original question, the most important reason to have that contract with the patient that says what's going on, especially in dentistry, I would think, would be to describe the scope and tell them what's included and what's not. Because I think dentists, more so than family physicians, you guys have a lot of procedures that you're doing, and a lot of those procedures are, there are a lot of choices, and a lot of those choices are preference rather than medical necessity.
Absolutely, yeah.
And the patient needs to know exactly what in the world is included in that. And what I think it works best for are chronic conditions that require routine observation, routine maintenance, change in medications. And what it's probably least effective for are your one-time procedures, especially the pricier ones.
Yeah, totally. No, I think that's good. So medical retainer agreement or direct primary care agreement is what they should be setting up. Does it help protect the practice with insurance regulations?
Yes, I would say so. Pretty much every state that has a law on the books, it requires you to have a contract like this, explaining your scope of practice to the patient, what's included in the fee, and also usually explicitly stating that this is not insurance.
Yeah. And that's probably the big thing for practices to do is tell the patients that it's not insurance, whether it's dental or medical. Is that true? What they should be doing?
Right. Right.
Cool. Okay. So yeah, all you practices out there that are thinking about creating a membership program, with your patients, don't call it insurance. I have seen a few practices out there that will call it like Dr. Smith's insurance program. And I guess what could happen if a practice calls it insurance? Do they just fall under all the regulation and
Right. A small standalone practice would be totally overwhelmed by the insurance code in the state and all the administrative burdens associated with that, all the capital burdens. You'd have to have probably several $1 million in the bank.
Yeah.
Just to have it available to pay out those kinds of claims, even as a very, very small company. So you can't meet all those rules, not as a standalone practice. So it would be pretty fatal.
Yeah.
And the fines and penalties are beyond civil and sometimes criminal. So don't be dumb about it.
Yeah. So don't call it dental insurance. Make sure you have this. Do they call it a medical retainer agreement, or is direct primary care agreement more common now?
Oh, I think most states are moving towards the term direct primary care. It's not my favorite phrase, but it is what it is. It's what's it's what the movement has grown around. It's what's referenced in all those state laws. It's what's referenced in the Affordable Care Act. So that's what's used.
Okay, cool. So direct primary care agreement, get one of those. Where can they find is there a place online that they can find an agreement, or what's the best way?
Lots of example forms that are listed on DPC Frontier,
okay.
And I don't have an example dental one. I could probably put one together pretty easy and pass that out via email also.
Yeah. Yeah,
Mhm.
I'll send you an email after the show, and we can put something together, and then I can get that direct link that you have for the forms and agreements on the medical side of things. I think that could be a definitely awesome resource for our listeners and for the industry in general. So, very cool. Okay, so I have another question for you. If a practice is in a state without DPC laws, what should they be doing?
Um, Go ahead and look at some nearby state laws, because odds are when you have one passed, it's going to be similar.
Mm-hmm.
Use the model agreement that we put forward to sort of guide you in how you do this. Um, and that's really all you need to do. If you want to be, really meticulous about it, then the best answer is, once you've come up with what you want to be your contract, look at your state insurance law, especially if they have one specific to dental insurance, and make sure that they couldn't somehow come up with an argument that what you're offering amounts to dental insurance.
Yeah.
The local attorneys who would be best suited to this kind of work for to have done just small business and contract law. So whoever you've relied on for your other forms as you go about, or inquiries on various things, is going to be best suited for this. It's not necessarily something that's in the wheelhouse of a lot of traditional health attorneys per se.
Yeah, well, that's what I have found. I've been researching this for quite some time here, and I stumbled upon your website, and I felt like I got a lot more answers than other attorneys that I've spoken to about this new interesting model in the healthcare arena. So yeah, I think that it definitely use a contract law attorney. If the contract law attorney is not familiar with DPC or anything, do we send them to your website, or is there other websites out there that they can go to learn about this concept? What was that?
Well, I say I may have lost part of the middle question there, but I think I got it. Is there other places you can go if your contract attorney is unfamiliar with it?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So for some states, I've listed a lot more detail on DPC Frontier. There are states pages, and you can click on that for your state and hopefully do a lot of self-education on this. And that same resource might be available to an attorney that's still relatively green on this issue, so that they won't have to spend a bunch of time and thus bill you a higher bill to find the answers that they need.
So they can go to dpcfrontier.com is your website, correct?
Right.
So everyone listening, go to dpcfrontier.com. We also have some links on our website that link directly to DPC Frontier. And you can do your own research about your state, send that to your contract law attorney to figure out, what your state laws are. But it seems to me that DPC is definitely a game changer for dental and medical practices trying to create this model. Is DPC, is it pretty legal across the states, I guess, with, like I said in the previous question, what do they need to do if their state law doesn't have one? Is there any? I think the biggest thing that I hear is that in the industry, or the myths, I guess, is that states are cracking down on this business model in the medical, or in our case, in the dental industry. But from my research, it seems like they're opening up to this model. What are your thoughts on that across the United States? And I know that's kind of a huge, broad question. Every state's different.
Yeah, there's been insurance commissioner guidance in only a few places. So several years ago, there was a back and forth up in New York State between a doctor named John Muney, M-U-N-E-Y, who ran a group called AMG Medical Care, and he was forced by the insurance commissioner to actually start charging a per visit fee. He didn't like his contracts and how it was set up. Ultimately, I don't think he faced any, civil or criminal penalties, but there was that investigation and this back and forth. There's been guidance offered in Montana and Massachusetts, even though they don't have state law in the books. They do have some favorable guidance from an insurance commissioner that says, hey, if you do these things, we're not going to be annoyed with you. And there's some similar guidance actually in South Carolina, which is one of the states pursuing laws as we speak.
Okay.
So to me, the trend is not one of harassment or sort of overly aggressive enforcement, but it is a gray area that people want clarified. And in terms of what should you do if you're kind of new in an area, and let's say you're in a state that doesn't have any DPC law in the books, and you go to some contract attorney and he says, I have no idea what you should do, then maybe you go to the DPC mapper, which lists those 770 practices across the country, and you zoom in and you find a practice nearby that's been doing this 3, 4, 5 years, and just give them a call.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Because most of them are pretty nice and open about this. I think they'd be happy to hear from a dentist in town who is clearly oriented towards price transparency. And you might find that you are referring patients to each other too that are looking for good care at a reasonable price.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good point. So the mapper can be found on your website, correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, again, DPC Frontier. Is it .com or .org?
DPCfrontier.com, and then you can type. The mapper is actually visible from the home page, but you can also there's a link to it at the top right.
Okay. So research everything about your guys' estates out there. What is there another resource? I think we talked about on our conversation prior to this. I think there's like dpcare.org.
Yes.
Is that a good resource as well that practices?
Sure. Yeah, for anybody that's interested in the policy interworkings of this, both at the state and especially at the federal level, dpcare.org stands for the Direct Primary Care Coalition is the name of the group, and I volunteer some of my time as their general counsel, and that organization is the reason direct primary care was mentioned in the Affordable Care Act. It was mentioned as being not insurance, but at the same time encouraged insurance plans to actually it would be compliant with the ACA, but specifically not cover primary care. None of them actually did it because it never hit critical mass, but it was mentioned and there was an option. And lately, we've been pursuing some clarifications in the tax code around direct primary care because the IRS really doesn't know what to think of DPC. Okay. So they do it as another type of plan, and when they see that you have a high deductible plan that qualifies you for an HSA, let's say your deductible is $5,000, and then they see that you also purchased direct primary care, they say, wait a minute, now you bought a second plan, and your second plan, since you just walk on in and you don't pay them any money, that's a $0 deductible plan. So they argue that by being a member of a DPC practice, you can't have an HSA.
I see. Yeah. So that's what's going down on the IRS side of things.
Yeah, we're going to clarify. There's several different bills out there that could fix it, and who knows if they'll pass, but we're optimistic.
Yeah, no, that could be really good for business owners that want to just skip out third-party insurance and want to go to the dentist or the medical office, and they still can run those through. I guess business owners and personal, just regular consumers, can go and benefit, and they can write those payments off as well on the tax side of things.
Right.
So hopefully that can pass. I think that can be an amazing thing for consumers out there, and then a selling point for practices creating these programs. So very cool. I think this has been an awesome episode, Dr. Eskew. What final thoughts would you leave our audience, in regards to this business model and the law out there?
Oh gosh,
I know it's a big topic.
Yeah. I think the most important thing, at least what I tell other family physicians, is if you're going to do it, really give yourself a chance to do it and really promote it in a clean and sort of easy way. Mm-hmm. The most common reason I see for a DPC physician not succeeding, I would argue, is because they never really tried. So some of them might try and run a hybrid model where 90% of their practice is still insurance-based. Okay. Only 10% is DPC, and that's just not a recipe for success because their overhead doesn't change, and I don't think their mindset really changes. And I also think it's hard as a physician or a dentist to treat some patients different from others. Yeah. So Either go for it and offer it to pretty much everybody, or wait until you're ready to do that.
Yeah, no, I agree with that 100%. That's one tip that I give to all of our users of our software is to, let's go all in with this because it's obviously a better business model for the practice. And so I know a lot of dental practices try to reduce their dependence on the PPOs while they're building, the membership model is what we call it here in the dental industry. So I guess they need to be a practice that's deciding to do this. They need to be focusing on external marketing and then offering it to their patients. Can a patient opt out of insurance and then join a DPC or a membership program of a practice?
Oh, I'm glad you asked this question. I should have hit this one. So this is a new one that's often overlooked.
Okay.
So how to say this easily? So we've got HIPAA on the books from the 1990s, and it's been modified a few times by other laws. And one of those laws that made a modification is abbreviated HITECH, HITECH. And there's a provision in HITECH that says that any patient, this includes Medicare patients, not necessarily Medicaid, there's some weird exceptions there, but Medicare or any private insurance, they have the right to request that their records not be sent to the insurance company for a certain visit, and that they be allowed to pay you privately for that visit. So for DPC physicians, this becomes important because when I call a cardiologist downtown and say, hey, I really would like you to do a stress test on this patient, and he says, well, I can do it, but I'm a hospital employee, so I have to charge their insurance. And the patient says, look, I got a $6,000 deductible. I don't want to come in and do that. I want a cash price up front because I know I'm going to get messed over by the insurance system.
Yeah, totally.
Then this HITECH provision gives that patient the right to say, I am requiring you to not share this information with my insurance company and to charge me privately.
Okay, interesting.
So why does this matter? Because as a dentist, if you're dealing with some PPO plan that you really don't like and you want to get out of, and you're working your way out of those things, then the patient who may come in and maybe they heard from a neighbor that you're running this monthly membership fee thing, and they want to contract with you privately even though they have dental insurance, then they are allowed to do that if they specifically ask to do it for privacy purposes.
Okay. And does the practice need to get them to sign anything on that topic? Okay.
Yes. Yeah, you would want to document that. And technically,
what's that document called?
Oh boy, that's another. I don't know that I have a clear form agreement for that one. I just want to reference that, send you links to it, and say that the patient is requested for privacy purposes that we not bill their insurance, and it very well probably would conflict with the agreement that the dentist had with the insurance company, but that doesn't matter because federal law trumps private contract.
Absolutely. Very interesting. No, that's a really good tip, I think, for our audience, trying to do more of this membership model in the practice, because then they can, that's a way for them to start to convert their patients over to this model and become more self-reliant, I guess, with DPC. So very cool, very cool. Okay, well, I'll get these links and all these resources. I'll put them in the show notes. So if you can email me afterwards some of these links, that I would appreciate that, and I'll put that in the show notes under this episode. But Dr. Eskew, thank you so much for coming on this show. I think this is important information for the dental industry, especially because there's so many rumors and so many myths about creating these membership type models in the practice, and I think DPC is an awesome, very positive law for practices trying to create this business model. So thanks for doing all the research you do and publishing it on the web for all of us to research and get educated on in the industry. Your website has been awesome for me and for a lot of my clients that I help with.
Well, thanks, Jordan. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks so much. And again, just in case anybody wants to reach out to you or go to your website, could you repeat the domain name again of your website?
Sure. It's www.dpcfrontier.com. That's Frontier spelled the usual way. It's FRONTIER.com. And my email is Phil, PHIL, at dpcfrontier.com.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Phil. So if you guys have any questions, reach out to Phil. He's been awesome, a great resource for me. I think I emailed him and you responded right away. So he's definitely a good resource for this industry as well. So thanks, Phil, for everything you do in the healthcare industry, and I hope you have a great Saturday.
Yeah, you too, Jordan. Thanks.
All right, have a good one.